Okay, welcome Monday after Thanksgiving. I trust that all of you had a great Thanksgiving with your families. Um, and now prepping for Christmas and Christmas with your families. All right, reminder, please ask your questions on the member site and um, uh, address anything there. And that a reminder that you can all jump on the courses as well. So here's the first question that came in. My non-fasting blood work glucose was 75. I'm struggling to gain weight. I have sent in a cheek swab and blood work and scans as markers tripled in 6 weeks. Wondering what changes I need to make to gain weight to my diet. I've added sweet potatoes, a couple of grains, and some nuts. Maybe you'll need to wait until we get your cheek swab. Yes and no. If a person is losing, so first of all, your blood glucose is 75. That's really where that's like perfect if you're dealing with cancer and you're trying to shut off at least the glucose flow of making energy. Um, so, um, so I would say you're doing well there. I wouldn't worry about the glucose levels, um, but um, your um, so let's go back to that. So glucose level of 75 would be considered on the border of hypoglycemia if a person wasn't trying to reduce glucose levels and trying to decrease sugar consumption and things like that. If a person is eating a ketogenic diet, I've had patients eating a ketogenic diet where their blood glucose is in their 50s. Now that's probably, that's kind of the benchmark for people on a ketogenic diet because they're trying to get their cells to feed off of ketones instead of glucose. Um, but let's say, okay, I'm not that strict on my diet. I am eating some sweet potatoes and some grains in my diet. But my biggest concern is not the glucose level at that level, but my bigger concern is the weight loss. So if you're losing weight on a like several pounds a week and you can't stop it and you're getting to or below what your a healthy weight should be, then that's a concern to me. So if you're still way above your, let's say, you could still lose 25 pounds and still be that it wouldn't be a concern, then I'd put it a little bit on the back burner. But if you're at a weight right now that, boy, this is the lowest weight I've ever been in my life. I don't think I'm at a healthy weight and I'm losing several pounds a week, that would be considered cachexia, and that is a concern. So then you have to make fairly drastic changes to your diet if you're in a cachexic state. Well, the question is well, if I start eating a lot of grains again and regular potatoes and rice and things, well, isn't that feeding my cancer? Well, you have to, it's kind of like that thing with my iron being low, and taking iron, couldn't iron feed my cancer? Well, you kind of have to weigh out a triage here and basically you can't starve yourself to death and uh and and have that be an endpoint for you. You have to balance this out. So in my mind, if you're at that cachexic state, so these are the questions. I don't actually remember who asked this question, and so I don't know where this person's weight is, so we should have a conversation. So we should talk about that. But in general, if you're like, hey, I'm still probably 25 pounds overweight, then I would staying on and then dealing with why you're checking your cheek swab to find out why your tumor markers tripled and CT scan has changed or whatever. We need to look at that too. But in general, if a person is at or below a healthy weight and they're losing 2 to 3 pounds of weight, no matter what they're eating, that is technically the definition of cachexia, meaning the cancer is probably gobbling up any calories that you're taking, and that's not a good thing. So you could be at risk of losing too much weight, getting too weak, and having that be your demise. So you do have to kind of change modes as far as your diet and get some more grains in. Hope things are progressing well for your family. I listened to Monday's questions in the Zoom call last week and heard the answer on the Sensa testing. I understand this perspective, but Tom's test did show, so this, remember, the Sensa testing is the hand cradle electrodermal screening type testing. So this person is talking about her husband. Tom's test did show a strong schistosoma activity in the bladder, which confirmed my hunch. This would go along with the research I saw on the CDC website from 2018 on what they published on this condition. They suggest a certain drug that is supposedly the only drug that treats this. My concern is the constant reproducing. I think the reproducing of the cancer cells, I think, or the reproducing of the biotoxin. I'm not sure. Should we get a blood test for this? Honestly, I don't. You'd have to ask a regular an MD about this, because I'm not so familiar with whether that would show up on a blood test. I honestly don't think so, because if it's in the bladder itself and it's not systemic, I don't think it'll show up on a blood test. You'd almost have to do a bladder scope with a sample taken in order to show that, I'm pretty sure. So I think you'd have to ask your urologist about that, really. The CDC says this condition can migrate to the liver and cause damage as well. So I don't know if there's any nutraceuticals that will specifically kill that. I do know that there isn't any nutraceuticals that can legally make the claim that they can kill that. Certainly taking immune stimulants is the best approach, but taking the drug isn't necessarily a bad approach either. So I would talk to my urologist about that and ask them, if there's any testing that they could do. They might say, hey, we'll just put you on a 3-week course of this and see. I don't know. You'll have to ask them about that. Would the Rife alone eradicate this? Well, there's no, I don't know if there's any specific, I know that there's specific programs, and I did put some of those programs in here overnight, if I remember correctly. So would it actually work to eradicate this? Well, there's no way that we could say yes to that. But I certainly would be running those programs. How often would you run it? I would definitely run it daily. Test to confirm the presence. Again, go back to what I mentioned about, I think that the only way that you could do is do a bladder scope and then do a scrape. But I'm not positive. Ask your urologist about that. I don't know if there's any other objective way to measure that. Those are the only questions we had come in. So anybody else on the line have any other questions? Look again. Came in well. Nope. Well, this is going to be the shortest Zoom call I've ever done. Well, it does make a big difference now that we're doing 2 a week. We might, after Christmas, actually go back to 1 a week, just because we're getting less questions. Have I written a blog post on body pH? Correct. I've spoken about it so often on the Zoom calls. I don't know if I ever wrote a post about it. Good question. Might have to just go to a blog here and see. I do have one on I do have multiple blog posts on alkaline water that I probably address that. Um, let's see, that's not a video. If you just do pH search in um, the search, you come up with alkaline water and cancer. Should you drink alkaline water? So I do have some blog posts addressing that, but I do know that um, I have talked about the pH and measuring a person's pH, and if there's any value in doing that. And my short answer is no. Your pH of your saliva and your pH of your urine is not at all indicative um, for your pH of the cancer itself, or the pH of your body systemically. Your body has a buffering system so that your pH doesn't vary that much. So if it did, you would die. So that's why you have these buffering systems. You pull calcium minerals out of your bone to buffer acidic environments, and you make sodium bicarbonate in through the process of making hydrochloric acid for your stomach. And actually, the byproduct is sodium bicarbonate, which helps buffer your body that way too. If a bottle of Highland 951 erupts, should the lid shut off the lid off and overflows, is the remaining liquid still good to use? I would say yes. And the reason why it might do that is because it's fermented soy. So it's like kombucha. One time I made the mistake when kombucha came out. I was actually doing a lecture. Somebody handed me a bottle of kombucha, and I thought it was just a bottle of juice, and I shook it and opened it up, and it sprayed all over the place. And that it's because it's a fermented product, so that the rest of it is just fine. So what do you think is happening with all the anecdotal cures with the baking soda blackstrap molasses protocol? I think the blackstrap molasses baking soda can be actually a good protocol if you have stomach cancer or esophageal cancer, but maybe even colon cancer. But if you have breast cancer, there's just no way there's just no possible way that is alkalizing the breast tumor. There's just no possible physiological way that's happening. So honestly, how I think it's working, I've talked to people in the phone that said, hey, they have breast cancer, they're doing the blackstrap molasses baking soda protocol, and it really helped them. They feel like they're doing really well doing it. I think it's probably other things that person's doing. Almost no one is just doing one thing. So, and so I don't know. I just, I think there is a physiological response. You're using um, um, the baking soda to affect your stomach. It's going to affect, and that's the bad thing. It will, it'll neutralize all the HCl in your stomach, and it's going to disrupt your digestion. But they're claiming that the molasses is taking the baking soda to the cancer. Again, they're just not understanding the physiology of how your body breaks down food. So it's the molasses is actually breaking down, is digesting in the intestinal tract, and it's not absorbing as molasses. It's breaking down to sugar, and it's breaking down to the other components in it. And the hydrochlor or the hydrogen benefit and the peroxide benefit of the baking soda is not going to link on to that. So again, it's not proper physiology. So there's all sorts of claims out there, I think, that in the alternative perspective, not even just in the cancer perspective, but in the alternative world, that have, like I said in the past, that I think sometimes give alternative doctors a bad name with regular medical doctors, because there's no, it doesn't even make any sense physiologically. Um, and anybody who's just studied physiology 101 can kind of point that out. So I think you just have to be careful with the claims. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, hey, I did this, and for some reason, I don't know why, it helped me. But when you start making claims like, oh, it does this, and this is how it does it, um, then it does. It's just like the Rife machine. When you start making claims, I did a talk on the Rife the other day and in a lecture, and I got an email saying, well, this is how it works because Royal Rife said this and this and this. Well, okay, I know that he said those things, but that doesn't make, just because he said it doesn't make it right. And that has been debunked. There's things that Max Gerson writes in his book that, because he wrote that book in 1945 or something, that, recent physiology understanding has kind of debunked that. And it's like, you don't just hang on to that because somebody said that. So you just got to be careful of that kind of stuff. And I am not against anybody. Let's say I'm not doing well. Let's pretend I wasn't doing well. Hey, would I be willing to try that? Hey, I'd try anything, And I do believe that your mental state makes a big difference about it. So if I believe it's going to work, I think that can help with the whole situation. So, and that's why I say, even if you have to do chemotherapy, don't be, cursing the chemotherapy. Believe that this is going to work and this is going to take care of my cancer. And I think your you have to put your faith correctly placed. You don't put your faith in the cure, you don't put your faith in the doctor, you don't put your faith in the machine, you put your faith in Jesus Christ. And if he's leading you to do something, you trust him in that outcome. Why did Jesus have when he cured somebody's blindness, he just cured his blindness. Another person he spat on the ground and made a clay out of the soil and put it on the guy's eyes. Was there anything magic about doing that? Was there something physiological about doing that? I don't think so. I think, I don't know why he did it. There's different ways that he cured a person of different things, different ways. Some he had him go wash in the pool and be cleansed, and some he just cleansed by touching him, and some people just touched him and were healed. So I think we have to be careful of, formulas and trusting a formula. We have to trust God and God alone. And I think the reason why there's those examples in scripture the way they are is so that we don't, as humans, because we have a tendency to do this, is to trust in a procedure, trust in a formula, trust in some, magic prescription, instead of trusting in God alone. And so, hey, if God is leading you to do the molasses and baking soda protocol, don't listen to my physiology understanding, which could be skewed completely too. Just do it. And you just have to have that relationship with him that's close enough that you can just feel that leading in a way to do something, and then you trust him, not the thing. It's not the saliva on the ground made into mud that healed the blind man. It's God's healing ability that healed the blind man. Maybe Jesus spat on the ground and made it in mud and put it on him just to spite the people that were watching it. Like, that's not the secret thing. So I don't know. So, but it gets back to just trusting him and trusting him alone in all things. And if you feel like God's leading you to do something, by all means, I'm not going to knock it. Just do what you feel like you need to be doing. Any other questions? Okay, well, we will say goodbye to everybody and get your questions in, and hopefully we'll see you on Wednesday. Thanks for being on, and we'll see you in a couple days. Bye-bye.